A lot of high earners think once RSUs vest, the hard part is over. It isn't. The hard part is what happens after they vest, because that's where people quietly lose money. They hold shares they never meant to hold. They take on more company risk than they realize. They pay attention to taxes, but ignore an important decision. And year after year, what could have become real wealth just sits there as confusion, concentration, and missed opportunity. Because every time RSUs vest, one question shows up whether you're ready for it or not. What should I do with them? I'm Daniel, a fee-only financial planner and owner of Artstone Private Wealth. I help high-earning millennials in tech reduce equity comp tax surprises. Right now, I'm offering a free 60-minute equity review. Go to the link in the description below and book your free equity review. In this video, I'll show you how to think through the sell versus hold decision, the 5-step system to run before every vesting event, and the mistake that traps smart people for years without them noticing. Let's start with the decision every vesting event puts in front of you. What do you do with the shares once they vest? This is where most people drift into a decision without realizing it. They say, I'll hold for now, but holding isn't neutral. Holding is a decision, because the moment those shares hit your account, the compensation piece is over. You've already realized income, taxes have already been triggered. From that point forward, this is an investment decision. Here's the simplest filter that I know when thinking about your RSU shares. If you are giving the same amount of cash, would you use that cash to buy your company stock? If the answer is no, then why are you holding the shares? And for high earners, this matters even more. Your exposure to the company already includes your salary, your bonus, your future raises, your career path, and now your portfolio. That's a lot of eggs in one basket. Here's what this can look like for you. Let's look at an example of $40,000 worth of RSU shares vest. After withholding, maybe you're left with around $28,000 on shares. That stock then drops 25%. Now that position is worth roughly $21,000, but you were taxed on the base of $40,000. So the value fell, but the tax costs didn't fall with it. Now you're holding something worth less than what you already paid on, and that makes selling emotionally hard. So people wait, and waiting, it's not a strategy. It's usually just delaying decision making. Now to be clear, holding is not always wrong. There are situations where it can make sense, but it should be intentional. You should understand the risk, define how much exposure you want, and know what would cause you to sell. Because if you don't have those things, what feels passive is actually an active bet in one company. At this point, you can probably see the pattern. RSUs are not a one-time event. They come back every single vesting cycle. And every time, the same 3 things show up: income, taxes, and an investment decision. This is what I call the equity comp blueprint, a 5-step process I use with my clients before every vesting event. Step 1, forecast the income. Before anything vests, estimate the additional income. Not vaguely, but specific. Run it at the current stock price. Then look at what would it be if it was higher than that current stock price. Then look at what it would be if it was lower than that current stock price. When you do that, RSUs stop feeling random and start becoming something you plan around. Step 2, calculate the real tax liability. Not the withholding, but the real tax bill. Federal, state, all of it. You should know before vest what that income is going to cost you. For high earners, getting this wrong can mean thousands of dollars you'd never planned for it. Now, I've included an RSU calculator that you can use, and it's in the description below. Click that link after this video to get that calculator. Step 3, make the decision before vest. By the time shares hit your account, the decision should already be made. Are you selling immediately? Holding a portion? If you're holding, how much? Why? And what would trigger a sell? If you wait until after vest to decide, default behavior usually takes over. Step 4, execute quickly. Once the shares vest, the thinking should already be done. Now you execute. Every day of hesitation can increase concentration risk. Moving quickly is not about being reactive, it's about removing unnecessary exposure. Step 5, allocate the proceeds intentionally. Selling RSUs is not the finish line, it's the handoff. Where is that money going? Into a diversified portfolio, towards financial independence, towards a goal that actually improves your life? Because if you don't assign the money a job, it just tends to drift. And over time, this is what separates people who build wealth with RSUs from people who simply just receive them. Let me share with you a real life example. I worked with somebody at a well-known tech company whose compensation leaned heavily on RSUs. Before working with me, they had been receiving grants for years and letting everything vest as it came. No clear plan, no process, just letting it build quietly in the background. And on the surface, it looked fine. Shares were vesting, money was showing up, nothing felt urgent. But underneath that, a different story was developing. Each time shares vested, they paid taxes on the value at that moment. And instead of selling or reallocating, they held the shares quarter after quarter across multiple grants. Then the stock declined. Now, they were in a position where taxes had been paid on a much higher value, but the shares were worth far less. On paper, they still had a large balance in company stock, over $200,000, but almost all of it was underwater relative to what they had already paid on. We looked at tax loss harvest strategies, but because so much of their non-retirement wealth was concentrated, the flexibility was limited. And this is what gets me about situations like this. It's rarely one giant mistake. It's a stack of small, reasonable-looking decisions repeated over time until one day you look up and you're somewhere you never meant to be. The difference between that outcome and someone who uses RSUs to build wealth is rarely intelligence. It's having a plan before the decisions arrive. Let me give you some questions to ask before every vesting event. Run through these 4 questions, and this is how you turn a strategy into action. First, what is the real tax impact of this vest? Not what's being withheld, what will you owe? Second, what percentage of my net worth is already tied to this company? Not just your RSUs. Remember, salary, bonus, equity, career, all of it. Third, if this arrived as cash today, would I choose to buy the stock now? If the answer is no, be honest about why you're still holding it. Fourth, what is the best use of this money right now? Where does it move my financial life forward the most? When you run these questions consistently, something changes. You stop reacting, you start deciding with intention, and over time, that's what separates people who feel stressed by RSUs from people who use them to build long-term wealth. RSUs can be one of the most powerful parts of your compensation, but only if you treat them like a wealth-building tool instead of a background benefit. The people who get the most from them are not the ones who understand the jargon the best. They're the ones with a clear process and someone making sure that process actually gets implemented. If you want help mapping out your vesting schedule, understanding the real tax exposure, and building a plan for what to do when shares hit your account, book your free 60-minute equity review now. The link is in the description below. We'll look at your numbers, your grants, your tax picture, and your next best move. No products, no pitch, just real clarity on a decision that can materially impact your future. Now, one more thing, selling RSUs is a great start, but if you don't have a system for where that money goes next, high income has a way of absorbing it. That's exactly what I talk about in this next video. It's a step-by-step system for making sure the money that you free up from RSUs actually builds wealth instead of disappearing into lifestyle creep. Click right here and watch that video next.